Some men are being greedy and some men are being hungry, right?
Say it one more time.
Some men are being greedy and some men are being hungry. So men who are hungry, for instance, right? Maybe they're not getting some things in the house. Now, I'm not saying that's a reason, right, to go ahead and cheat. But some men are in a relationship where they aren't getting things in that relationship and they've gone to look for those things somewhere else. Again, I'm not saying it's the right thing. That's the example of being hungry, or somebody actually being hungry. Somebody being greedy, that means you got what you need. That means you got all this stuff at home. That means it's the 80-20 rule. If you ever heard the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is you have 80% of what you're looking for in your mate, because nobody's gonna get everything. You got 80% of what you're looking for in your mate, and then you go leave because of the 20%, only to get to the 20% to realize that it's only 20%. What's going on, y'all? Black Dad Unfiltered. We here live in studio once again. I'm Carlos V. Spencer.
It's your boy, Coach Rod. Once again, we're here trying to change the narrative of perceptions of black fathers through authentic conversation. This is real talk. And again, we're speaking to black dads, black sons, and anyone who comes in touch with a black man. Well, we got on deck today, Los.
Ooh, we got a good one today.
Yeah.
Yes, they say if you're scared, say you're scared. But we ain't scared.
I'm a little scared, but
You're a little scared?
a little bit.
This topic, and we want the people to know who are watching in that these are topics that people chose.
Yeah.
Right? Remember, we put a poll together, a good number of people, and we brought the poll and looked at the numbers back of what people want to hear and the conversations they want to talk about. So we wouldn't just be talking about conversations that we want to have ourselves.
Sure.
So this one in particular is, why do men cheat when leaving is an option?
When leaving is an option.
Why do men cheat
Sure.
when leaving is an option?
That's
a strong one. That's a hot one.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. That's a one that you got to dig into. And I think we're going to have enough time to dig into it. What comes to mind when you think about that? What comes to mind from the question itself before even talking about the answer to the question?
So the first thing I'm thinking is always, what's the benefit of having this conversation?
Yeah.
Because every conversation has to bear good fruit. You know what I mean? And so I said, okay, if we're thinking about why men cheat, it's not a gossipy. This is having men understand, why do I sometimes have challenges of being monogamous or committed to one person? Or why do I want to step out and not just stay out? Why do I want to be in both worlds?
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing that starts popping into mind. It's, why cheat? Why are you afraid to just end this relationship? And that's where I'm going to really speak to.
Yeah.
Why are you afraid to end this relationship? Why stay in it? And I think this pretty much tends to happen with men that are in horrible marriages where there's kids involved. But this also happens with men and women that are just in relationships in general. So what popped into your head?
Man, for me, it's something I said, and I think it needs to be said more openly.
Yeah.
So when I've given advice to people, and a lot of times it's maybe to a woman who's married and somebody's asked me this question, I said some men are being greedy and some men are being hungry. Right?
Say it one more time.
Some men are being greedy and some men are being hungry. So men who are hungry, for instance, right? Maybe they're not getting some things in the house. Now, I'm not saying that's a reason right, to go ahead and cheat. But some men are in a relationship where they aren't getting things in that relationship and they've gone to look for those things somewhere else. Again, I'm not saying it's the right thing. That's the example of being hungry, or somebody actually being hungry. Somebody being greedy, that means you got what you need. That means you got all this stuff at home. That means it's the 80-20 rule. If you ever heard the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is you have 80% of what you're looking for in your mate, because nobody's going to get everything. You got 80% of what you're looking for in your mate, and then you go leave because of the 20%, only to get to the 20% to realize that it's only 20%, and you left 80% for it.
Okay.
So you're being greedy when you have the things that you need pretty much in your home. So it's two sides of it. Some men being greedy, some men being hungry, but not saying that's an excuse for either one, but I've seen both.
You know what? I need our assistant to get me my cell phone, because I gotta take notes. So if you can, get me the cell phone.
You gotta bring some notes.
Just when you get here. Yeah, because with both. Yeah, please. If someone in the studio on the team can get me a cell phone, right? All right. Thank you so much. Shout out to the team that's helping us. You know what I mean, with this live in studio production. So I like to take notes.
Okay.
With what you said, I heard one common thing. It's there's something in us, something innate that's crying out for something. So if you're greedy, that's not just because what's making you greedy, right? What's giving you the FOMO? What's giving you the fear of missing out and all that other jazz? And then if you're hungry, what exactly are you hungry for? Mm-hmm. Is that making sense?
It does.
So it's always going to come back to me on an emotional level. So I go back to one story. So I had my man, and he cheated on his girl. Mm-hmm. He said he loved her and all this other jazz. I said, you were afraid, right? So there was probably something in this relationship, right, that was always gnawing at you. Mm-hmm. You were afraid to confront it for the fear of what will come out of this when you confront it. Mm-hmm. Is it going to be a conversation you now didn't want to really have to have? Yeah. Is it going to be somebody angry at you? If you tell this woman, well, this is really what I want, are you going to lose her? It's that fear factor that we're almost raised with, where confronting this impacts you. Mm-hmm. So I told him, I said, you didn't want to tell her what you were feeling because you want to control the outcome of a conversation. Mm-hmm. You were afraid of what she would respond with. Mm-hmm. You're afraid to ask her what you really want. So you're being dishonest with yourself. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, because you're trying to control this narrative and control the outcomes of a relationship, mm-hmm. you're afraid of what can come out of it if the truth comes out. Mm-hmm. Right? And now you just, it's just easier. Mm-hmm. It's just easier for me to have this cake here and go get there. Yeah. Well, the whole time, you're just creating two new voids in your life. Mm-hmm.
And something you're still going to have to deal with, which I think leads to, I think some men are not dealing with stuff that they have, some traumas that they have, some things they grew up with.
Of course.
Not looking at yourself. That's what, I won't say all of it, I will say a good amount, I think, boils down to you really not looking at yourself. So really not having something in you that you maybe not paying attention to or doing the work.
So let's anchor this conversation, right? Because I'm going to take us down two paths. Mm-hmm. Emotional cheating and physical cheating. Mm-hmm. Off the jump, right? Which one is worse?
Whew. Man, that's while you were saying it, I'm like, it's the same thing.
Is it?
It's the same thing. I do think physically is more, because once you physically cross that line, that's an attachment. Once you physically cross that line, there's some type of intimacy that's taking place for sure.
There's an exchanging of something, right?
There's an exchange of something in that, man.
Because biblically, that's what marriage was, right? The minute you interacted, right?
Even back in the day, you consummate
entanglement. I was about to do that. Yeah. But so you're saying once that happens, it's like you've almost wedged yourself to this person.
You've opened yourself up. Like you said, even back in the day when you see kings and queens, they would consummate the marriage. And they would say they weren't actually married until you actually got in the bed together and actually had sex, had intercourse. That in itself was a binding contract, right? Because some would say, "Oh, you haven't bound it, you haven't done it." So it's close though, because to me, the emotional, I don't think is far from it. And the reason why I say that, because if you thought about it, and if you've gone to that space within your mind. The mind is so powerful. I know I ain't gonna chase that on this whole episode, but the mind is so powerful. If you've chased it down within your mind, someone would say you've already done it.
So don't stray away from that, because that's the conversation we need to have. Yeah. So the minute I started thinking it, I've already, based on what you said, I've already engaged in some level of cheating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you already opened the door. You're already entertaining it. But for me, it's thinking it, and I'm gonna be careful, but I'm gonna be clear. It's thinking it and continuing to think it. Like staying in that space of that thought.
Think what? Think, oh, wow, this person's really nice. I wonder what it would be like. Like, think what?
What it would be like. Think of having sex with that person. Thinking of going there. Thinking what the relationship would be. Thinking about going on vacations with this person. Thinking about spending time with this person. Thinking about the things that you would do with your person. Right?
With somebody else.
With somebody else.
Okay.
You're doing that. And the reason why I say when you're staying in that space, because I think it's safe to say that some people have those thoughts. And sometimes you have some thoughts that's like, all right, I shouldn't be thinking that. So I wouldn't say that person that is having that thought and they're doing away with it, is that emotionally cheating? No, that's a thought that came to you. Maybe it was something that you were sleeping and woke up and I don't know, however it came up, but you're not dwelling there.
Okay.
So I want to be safe, because some people may have had a thought. Like thoughts come. I've heard it said and I do believe it. The question is, can you tell me what your next thought is going to be? It's like, you can't really tell me what your next thought is going to be, because a lot of times your thoughts are coming to you. And sometimes, if you actually want to go deep, your thoughts are coming to you based upon something you're putting inside yourself. So if somebody's having a thought and like dispelling it, doing away with it, I think that's different than entertaining that thought.
So I look at it like this. I'd rather you have the thought and come talk to me.
Yeah.
I guess the cheating part is when you don't come to talk to me about
Yeah.
you're feeling different things, right?
Because you're probably staying in that thought.
Or you're afraid to have the thought.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you dream of yourself frolicking, because that seems to be the word now. We're frolicking, right?
Yeah.
Imagine you find yourself frolicking, and you dream about frolicking with, and this is probably what happens, a coworker, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're frolicking with your coworker, and you're thinking about how easy it is to talk to that coworker because you're not in the context of your relationship.
Right.
I think having that thought is the first sign something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Having the thought to me is not bad,
Mm-hmm.
but this is where it's like, how do you go to your partner and say, listen, man,
Mm-hmm.
I'm having dreams or thoughts of other women,
Mm-hmm.
right? And frolicking, and I don't know what it means. Like, that's the part I said we're afraid. Because I can see myself going, and let's say, I have somebody, let's call her Juju.
Mm-hmm.
I go to Juju and be like, Juju, I had this weird dream that I was frolicking with Denise.
Mm-hmm.
What you think that's going to do to the relationship now?
Right. Now this goes back to another
This is what I'm
episode
saying.
that they need to watch. You got to have some emotional intelligence. I got that from Coach Rod. You got to have some emotional intelligence because, and you have to have good communication with your person, because if you don't have that, that other person may be insecure and may be in the space of, how long you been thinking this? Maybe in the space of, next time they're upset at you, oh, now you're going to go think about this other person that you was thinking
This is
about.
what I'm saying.
So that's why it's got to be safe. But I've seen some situations, and this is a little bit opposite, but I've seen a mentor friend of mine who's married, and it was kind of on the other foot, where his wife woke up and she was like, I had a dream that you cheated on me. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry. And not even I'm sorry. He was like, oh, that's bad, babe. And then kept going about his business. Because they were secure enough for her to share that with him, and for him to know, I ain't doing nothing, so I'm not chasing that. So I'm not even going to feed into it. And she was comfortable enough to be able to say it to him.
See, but I feel like it's always going to work the other way around.
Yeah.
I feel like as a man, we can hear some of this and be like, that ain't nothing, I ain't entertaining it. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, because remember, we've learned already from again, talking with Dawn, right? Forensic psychologist and a clinical psychologist. Yeah. Is that women live in their emotions. Mm-hmm. They repeat it. The trauma stays in there, and men, we have a hard time catching up. Men are logical, women are more emotionally based. Mm-hmm. But again, as a man, you can't run from that, right? You got to still engage as if you're looking for solutions. Mm-hmm. But I just want to talk about the emotional part, because again, I do believe I'd rather you start there and let's figure this out. Because I strongly believe people cheat for the most part because you're trying to fill voids and gaps. I do believe there's one woman, once your list of what you're seeking for is distilled to the true core, your list can't be 100 things long of what you want in a woman. Right. We got to come down to 4 or 5 core things that this woman has to have. And I believe if you have those 4 or 5 things, you're probably content, especially if you're older and wiser, saying, I got what I need right here.
But that's a real mature person. That's a real mature, extremely aware man, which I think you should be. To be able, one of my cousins says this, if 90% of your problem is your spouse, you need to work on the 10% that's you. So with that statement, like you said, that man who may be cheating or stepping out, there's a void he's trying to fill in himself. You got to be aware enough to be able to look at yourself and responsible enough as a man to say, it don't matter what she did. Now I'm hoping she ain't done nothing crazy. But you really need to come to some resolve to say, it don't matter what she did. There was something in me that did this. Because if you don't come to that resolve, then you taking that something into the next relationship.
And so this is why I want to have this conversation, right? Because do we know the answer? No. Mm-hmm. We don't know the answer to the question why men cheat. Mm-hmm. However, we can have the conversation because this is to get us to say, why am I doing this? Because I strongly believe if you are of right mind, when you decide to marry someone, you make that decision that I want to marry you. Not that you feel pressure to doing this. Your intent wasn't, I want to marry you and still keep my old lifestyle. It's, I want to marry you and fulfill my vision of what this should look like. Mm-hmm. But again, just from prior experiences, even my own life experience, until I got comfortable with who I was, again, this goes back to me understanding what I want. Yeah. I realized no woman would have satisfied me.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's no woman that would have met my true core need, right? My true core need to say, I am now in a good position where I can work on everything else. So I know for me, going back, you could have been, being former athletes, a track body was it. So you could have had the track body. I don't know if I would have still been faithful to you. Right? Because what if I couldn't laugh with you? Okay, what if I can laugh and we have the track body, but mentally we just can't have good communication? So when you cheat, it's not, there's some that cheat for the visual and physical gratification or the conquest. This is why I always say it comes back to something. What am I trying to conquer here? Right? Because you hear how men, I'm going to, I'm going to body this, I'm going to do this. At some point, it's really all the same.
So you get right to my point. I just ain't want to cut you off. I do believe that many men are not thinking, right? I think it was Earl Nightingale says most people's problem is that they're following the follower, never asking the person they're following where we going. So you're not thinking.
Yo, I swear, man. I swear. Yo, before we do these, you gotta go in pre-production and say, Rod, get 2 quotes ready because I'm probably going to do it again to you. If this is a rap battle, I'm losing. Okay.
No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. No. You go bar for bar. You come with some bars. You dropping bars.
Good Lord.
Most people don't think, and exactly what you said. I've had this conversation now that I'm older and more mature with another man, and both of our conversation resolved in, if you go down this road and say you do this with this woman and say you sleep with this woman, and then after that, then what? Like, really, then what? Like, really think through it. Like, after that, then what? Especially if you have somebody. It's like, do you want to be with that person?
No.
And if you do not want to be with that person, if you really think it through, after that, there's really it's almost no point to do it.
But that's the whole, see, this is what I'm saying. It's all psychological to me. It's all emotional and psychological. We as men, and I can't speak for all men, but what I'm trying to uncover is, are we cheating again because we are trying to fill gaps in our lives that we are not aware of? Remember, we already talked about that men who experience trauma, they're always in a state of survival, which is why they never know that they've actually experienced trauma, because they're trying to survive. They're in this rat race, and they don't have time to actually sit in their emotions or even recognize emotions. So as you're doing this, and we're not excusing cheating, this is about conversation of why. As I got older and I can reflect on myself, it's just like, oh, I may not have felt attractive. So the more women I can get, the more it validates me externally. Oh, I must be good looking if all these women are trying to give me their bodies. Or it could be, I'm angry with women. I've been abandoned by women. You're going to feel my anger. I believe in all traces. I used to have a guy, my man, right? Well, let's talk about me. Let's not talk about my man. As I said, I don't think growing up any one woman could have satisfied me.
What's up? We are Black Dad Unfiltered. We are here to change the narrative through authentic conversation for Black men, and particularly Black fathers. We thank you for joining us here on this episode. Please like the channel, subscribe to the channel, send a comment to the channel. Let us know the information that you like. Let us know what's speaking towards you. We'll be sure to stay in touch with you as well. Thank you.
So any relationship that I had, I was intentionally trying to be faithful, right? But there did come a point in my life where I was just like, I want to trade this for anything in the world. Because that person was more to my life than just a partner. You know what I mean? They were my refuge, my reprieve, my vacation, my secret place, my home, right? They became different to me. So how many people want to lose their house?
So
you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why I sit there and say, where are you when you're in the relationship? What are you afraid of to walk away? Because remember, the question was when leaving is an option. So we have to assume that I won't leave.
Right.
So we have to start dissecting what's going on in here that I'm like, I'm finding this here. shorty over here does X, Y, Z, but I still want to come back to this?
Right, because like you said, the question was why she was leaving as an option. You could have left. So that means you didn't want to leave, right? That means you didn't want to leave what you had.
Or you're afraid to leave.
Or you're afraid to leave.
Okay.
I do think, let's tackle this. I do think a good amount of men get caught out there in the sense of you get comfortable. Maybe it's a coworker. Maybe it's somebody you see on a regular basis. Maybe it's somebody you drive home, you stop at the same restaurant, you stop at the same bar, and she's the bartender, and you get comfortable. And I think some of it happens, especially when leaving is an option and you don't want to leave, right? And you want to come back, you don't want to trade what you have for this. I think many of those instances are when men get comfortable, and they get comfortable with somebody talking to them, with somebody listening to them. And to get you again from the example I gave earlier, you got 80% at home. And now if somebody's giving you the 20% that you don't get, it's easy to fall for that 20% when you ain't getting it. It's real easy for somebody to give you conversation, somebody to listen to you when you feel like you feel like your wife ain't listening to you, but she's giving you everything else, but you feel like she just don't listen to me. And you go to this bar and this woman is listening to you. You're at work and this person who works with you, you start going to lunch. You start seeing her on lunch breaks.
Yes.
You start talking a little bit before work. You start staying a 30 minutes or 20 minutes after work. And now you're getting something that you didn't get. So now you're slowly falling for something, and you've been opened up to something that you may not be receiving. And now, again, leaving would be an option, but you don't want to leave what you have. You just want more of that piece that you're getting.
Oh, wow. You don't want to leave what you have. You just want more of
that piece that you're getting.
But that goes back to, again, if you like what you have, what's stopping you from making that all that you need? You get what I'm saying?
I do.
Because I'm addressing this as a need perspective.
I do.
Right? So if to use your example, I got 80% here, shorty at the bar gives me the 20% I don't get. The bartender with the coworker, whatever the freak it is. You know what I'm saying? Something tells me, and you said comfort, it's easier for this. So that tells me there's a part of me that's afraid to be by myself again. Maybe not. I don't know. There's a part of me that's afraid to address the 20% because I may already have predetermined that there is no getting the 20% from this, right? And then the other part is, do I just want things easy? You get what I'm saying? Do I just want this comfort without the accountability that comes with it?
That's a big question.
So this is why I sit there and say, and we ain't never going to bash men. I'm always going to drive home the why. In business, there's a Six Sigma, right? And the whole and this deals with operations. The whole purpose of Six Sigma is to have like a 99.99999% accuracy in getting your product to an end customer and their satisfaction. So there's a thing in it called the 5 whys. Keep asking why 5 times and you get to the heart of it. That's what I'm doing here. Why? Why do you get refuge in her? Why? Right? Because she's only giving you the 20%, which means you're able to self-select what you like.
Right.
That ain't about life. There's nothing in life that comes perfect.
Right.
Not a woman, not a son, not a child, not a husband, not a single darn thing.
Can I say this?
You can say what you want. Just make sure you're saying it right.
This may not be the end-all, be-all, but, man, pun intended, Black Dad Unfiltered, I do think a good amount of these men have not had that model in front of them. That father, for them to be able to see and learn that, son, you're not going to get everything. That, son, you're going to have to work through this. You made some great points. That, son, that ain't what life is going to be, taking the easy route. You selecting something that's easy that you don't want to deal with, that's not what life is. I do believe that a good amount of men don't have that example of a man or a father in their life to be able to have that conversation so that you can know, oh, this is actually something I need to work through. So this comes with it.
So I'm going to actually tell you, because this is where we're trying to change the narrative, but this is why it's so important for both the mom and dad to be together.
Definitely.
Because I don't think you can learn about not cheating without the presence of a dynamic woman in his house.
Oh yeah. Well,
Right.
I'm saying father. I'm saying couple together.
Yeah,
Yes, but yes.
yeah. So like, my son or my children or anyone may not know why the commitment is so important if they don't see examples of the outcome of the commitment being so valuable.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Importance and value. So if your kids see, dang, my dad has been by my mom and happy and joyous.
Right.
So there is some level of modeling into this. Because I think those are the men that tend to value monogamy more. It's because they've seen it.
Yeah.
It's created some level of a target to say, my mom, my dad. But for those who don't have that, again, it goes back to why cheat. I know for me, and I can only be vulnerable, and I don't want to put too much of myself out there. It was the validation of your being when women flirt with you, right? I used to say this because of my confidence, right? I was always especially young. I was in relationships where my partners never spoke to the king in me, right? This is the maturity level. The women that I had felt the need to. He's already too confident. I don't want to feed into this confidence.
Wow.
You get what I'm saying?
Wow.
So any woman that was willing to speak to the king in me and be like, yo, they would get my ear.
Right.
And I was always open about that.
Right.
Because I need to hear it. I need to feel it and hear it from my partner. And if I'm not hearing it from you, the door's open now for me to hear it from somebody else.
Yeah.
But this is why I said the maturity comes and says, okay, if I'm not hearing it from my partner and Jane Doe over here is telling it to me, this is why I said the maturity comes is, let me not romanticize this. Because although Jane Doe is giving me all the compliments here, two choices. I can feed into that, and that has its own rabbit hole. Or I can just go to my partner and say, I need to hear this from you.
So I'm going to push back on the other side.
Push back whatever you want.
I'm going to add another piece to the pie.
Okay.
And this is valid because of the way we set this up.
Yeah.
Because this conversation we've been having, and you brought up some great points about accountability, responsibility, looking at yourself. There's a void in me somewhere. I need to take on this. So we started off with all that, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't point the blame and point no fingers at nobody. And I'm still not doing that because we're going to uplift on this show.
Yes.
But just as important, if you're going to do that within yourself as a man, Miles Monroe said, your man should never be in a hurry to leave and hate to come home.
I done been there.
So we got to talk about that part too, because we're talking about the other part, and we're not laying all the onus on the women. But you have to know this. If we're going to educate and have a conversation,
you know what? You're right.
We got to talk about that part.
So there's a part where the environment itself is saying there may be a better option.
There's a part where the environment could be playing a role, and you should at least do the best that you can so the environment doesn't. I'm, again, not saying that that's an excuse to go and do it, but I am saying you should be wise enough to know. I heard a man say this, man, it was one of the heaviest bars I ever heard. He said, women's intuition, you believe in it, right? They said, yeah, so you believe in women's intuition to know when your man might be cheating. All the women in the audience said, yeah. He said, then why can't you lean into that intuition when your man ain't happy?
Like I want to give you a high five, and then I want to hit you at the same time. It's a mixed emotions right now.
All I'm saying
that was deep, bro.
That there has to be some self-awareness to know within yourself that it's not my fault, but to know, let me do everything that I can. One of my, I gotta say relative, because you know who the person is if I say it.
Yeah.
I said, you need to write a book, woman. One of my relatives.
Yeah.
About how she moves with her husband.
Yeah.
And granted, it ain't perfect.
Yeah.
But I picked up some clues. She said, when he's coming home, she said, I know when he's getting off work, and when he's on the way home, I'll have the clothes washing in the dryer, but I won't start the dryer until I know he's about 15 minutes from the house. So when he comes in the house, he smells the dryer sheets when he come in. I said, what? What kind of? I said, what kind of?
I visualize the smell just. Yeah.
And she does it on purpose to help set an atmosphere. She said, yeah, there are days that he comes home and I'll have a bath set for him. Now, mind you, he does things for her too. So I'm not saying this is somebody that, oh, you're just doing it one way. No, she's just saying she preparing the atmosphere for him to be like, I'm going home. Forget the rest of y'all. I know what it's like when I'm going home. So I want to get into that environment because it's purposely prepared. Those are some things that she's doing on purpose. Now, again, I'll say somebody else, maybe not her. Like, if somebody else is in that same situation and the man did something, you like, I did do that. Okay, every situation is not perfect, and I'm not saying you should blame yourself, but I bet you can find some peace in saying, at least I know I did this.
Yeah.
You might have did that, and it wasn't right, but you know what? I was holding this down. Mm-hmm. So I would say for the other side, pay attention and do what you can to create an environment. Watch this. That your man does want to come back and that your man feels open enough to be able to talk to you about something that may not be right. Because you and I both know men are dealing with some stuff that they don't feel comfortable in talking to their person about.
So it's both people working at it, right? So I used to have my boy, and notorious cheater. Notorious, and just notorious. But the thing was this, had children, and he would say, to your point, a lot of it's good, but sometimes the headache, when I go here, to your point, what you said earlier, I don't got to deal with the headache.
Yeah.
But I know he was sticking around because of the kids.
Yeah.
So we know ideally you want your kids to, science says it. Mm-hmm. Kids need both their mother and father, right? They need, and it helps the more they can grow up in a healthy home with both parents exercising emotional intelligence, good communication. Mm-hmm. But that goes back to now the bigger question when kids are involved, because that's what we got to talk about. Mm-hmm. When kids are involved, which is better? Is it you cheat and you stick around? Or do you tell Shorty, I got to bounce, and now the house is divided? Mm-hmm. I mean, I got my thoughts, but I'm asking you.
That's a tough one, but I will say this because, it's unfiltered. I ain't shying away from nothing. That's a tough one, and it's not just a clear answer to it. But when the children are involved, you do need to do what's best for the children, but you got to be mindful of that environment that the children are in. And I'll speak to myself. My mother told me this personally. My mother and my father separated, right? And my mother said, if I would have known that it wouldn't have had a much more damaging effect on you all, I would have left sooner. So my mother stayed because of the children. Like with the conversation we're talking about, she stayed longer.
Yeah.
Because I got to do what's right for my children and this. And then my mother told me in my adult age, you know what? Not saying it was perfect for y'all not having your father there, but you know what? We were okay and we did all right. If I knew that, I would have got you out of that environment, and I would have got myself, let me say that, herself out first, because she knew I need to be whole for these children.
And so that's why I come to at the end of this, right? Because thank you for sharing that, because that's deep. Because that's something else. This goes back to the fear of another man raising your kids, fear cannot govern our choices. And you really need to ask yourself, when I do cheat, why? This goes back to the why, right? Because to me, sometimes cheating is not wrong if you're being honest to yourself. What's wrong is when you don't inform the partner, when the other person doesn't know they're in a 3-4 person relationship. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a fear there to tell the person I did this. So again, why men cheat, we'll never know. Why women cheat, we really won't know. My hypothesis is
why cheat when leave it as an option. When tie that into the hypothesis.
When leave it as an option, right? Yeah. Why cheat? Why keep somebody in a relationship with you when you can't fully commit yourself to them?
Yeah.
That really is what I'm boiling down to, and this is why I sit there and say, you'll never be happy. No matter how much you do it, you're not going to be happy until you realize what's going on in me, and when I select a person, they're seeing what's going on in me. Because men have loyalty. We got boys that 20, 30. So we know what loyalty looks like. We got guys where, you know what I'm saying? they can do you dirty. You still gonna hold them down because there's forgiveness. Like, okay, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So why can't we apply? So this is why I sit there and say probably, bad mommy daddy relationships growing up, probably cultural things happening that you witnessed, probably some trauma that you've experienced. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That eventually now has you stifled. Mm-hmm. When it's like, hey man, I know I don't want to be here, but so maybe I get a little happiness here. And why I love this topic is that happiness here, there, wherever, just compounded your issues.
Oh, definitely.
You don't realize it because again, it's what we call instant gratification. It's all it is temptation. Yeah. Right? And so this is why I want to have this, because we'll never be able to answer the question.
Yeah, but we can give some
ideas like, yeah, you know what? I think what we said was, I wouldn't if I just had this missing 20 piece. Or if I knew if I can get to this missing 20 piece. 2, I'm just greedy. And whatever's the heart of that greed,
that's something.
Because greed, again, remember, greed is one of the 7 deadly sins if you follow that. There's something about greed that makes you want to consume in excess.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's food, whether it's clothes, materials, or whether it's women. So it still comes down to some type of psychological component in you. And then there's the other component, fear, right? What we're talking about, fear of missing out. Again, that can trace back to your upbringing. So this is why I sit there and say, when we cheat as men, we got to ask ourselves why we're cheating. And the reality of it is, times are when you're cheating, it's probably not in your best interest.
No.
It's just not. So if I have to cheat on you, why don't I just leave you? Right? Like your mom said, I should have got out. Why don't I just get out this relationship? Because there's something wrong with it. If I'm willing to entertain all this other stuff,
something's going on with it. So I'll say this, and were you still going?
No. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna get some backlash for this.
That's good. That means, you know what? I welcome it. Put it in the comments. Share it. Go ahead and let us know.
Tag Carlos V. Spencer when you do that.
So we can have some dialogue about it. For me, why cheat when leaving is an option? One of my things I go back to is the comfort. I think because if they didn't leave when leaving was that option, many of the things I agree with what you said. Sometimes it's being afraid to deal with it. Sometimes being afraid to deal with what you got back at home. But I think some people get comfortable, man. They get comfortable because if leaving was an option and you don't want to leave, then you got comfortable somewhere. And one thing that I usually go by in my own life is if Z is an option, right? We talking about the alphabet. A's here, Z's here. If Z is a possibility, cut it off at B. Because you sooner or later you ain't gonna be strong enough to cut it off.
You know what?
So you got to cut it off when you actually are early enough and you've gotten comfortable to the point where you find yourself in a situation where, leaving was an option, but you don't want to leave. To me, that says if you don't want to leave, then you didn't want to do it.
Okay. I don't got nothing else after that, man. I think right there, it does come down to comfort again, but comfort comes down to, are you afraid to start over? It's something internal, right? Internal. And this is what we're getting at. It's, I'm not going to question your lifestyle because in some countries, having multiple women is completely fine. Right? We understand based on our faith and our doctrine, right? One man, one woman, there's a union, right? That you come to. But if you're comfortable, I still say what are you afraid of? Because you're afraid of being uncomfortable. Right? And this is where we come down with the men. It's like when we think about everything we've been through, our abilities to make decisions, our abilities to deal with what's uncomfortable. This is why we have these conversations, right? Because you got to be in a relationship. Ultimately, you gotta be able to deal with peace and discomfort. God never promised you, happiness is a fleeting emotion. I'll give you peace, but tribulations comes with this. So we're gonna have some of the hardship, but I'm gonna root you in peace. So when this comes, fear does not overtake you. It's just an opportunity for you to exercise the strength of your character, whoever you are. So it's the same thing in relationships. When cheating presents itself, I will always ask any man, why do I even want this option? And if we can start answering that, I may be able to find a different solution. And again, I do believe a lot of us go into bad relationships.
I think that happens too.
Right, and mentally, as a reprieve, cheating is the only thing you see as your option. Leaving is an option. I think as men too, we stick around with toxic with toxic relationships.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean the person's toxic. You can have two good people in a toxic relationship.
Could be.
And then, like I said, for fear of starting over, for fear of losing everything you already had, for fear of the retaliation, we just say, okay, you know what? This is just easier. But I also believe that what looks easier comes with its own set of issues, and you're actually compounding it. So again, I ain't gonna question what you're doing, but I always question why you're doing it. Right? And then again, back to another show, choose wisely in your partner, because hopefully you have that partner that makes you want to say, man, I'll kill a brick for this woman.
I'll kill a brick for this woman.
You know,
I think you got to be around good people too. And I know we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. And the reason why I say that is because nobody's perfect.
None.
I think men who have good men around them can bring that stuff to men when they might not be able to bring it home, and they might not be able to deal with it. And a man will ask you, yeah, but why, bro? Or say, yeah, I hear you, bro. And it's valid, some stuff you're talking about, but you really got a good thing at home.
I think so too. I think there's not enough of that. I think there's not enough of the honest man holding ourselves accountable. I remember I had a friend of mine, and she came to me, and it was this particular situation, and I said, you gotta understand, there's only gonna be, you're gonna have two options: stay or go. Both of them are difficult. Which
difficult one you want to do?
That's all it is, right? And so it goes in the same for men. You know, which difficult you want to choose, right? Because no woman is perfect. What do you really want out of this? Yeah. Right. And again, if you don't have peace, I get it. Then get out of Dodge. Period. All in all. But if you're talking about, she talks to you crazy. Maybe she's not talking to you crazy. Maybe she just don't know how to talk to you. We still got. I'm a big proponent. Teach that woman how to love you. She can't read minds, and women teach that man how to love you. He can't read minds, and let's work on this together, man. Los, man.
This has been good, man. This has been a great conversation, man. This has been at the top of it. It was like, woo, we about to do this, but this has been good dialogue. Man.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's all it is conversation.
It is.
We don't know. We're not chastising. We're not excusing. But we're really saying, like, how do we grow from this? And I can only talk about my experience, where it's like, okay, as I got older, the things I looked at don't attract me anymore. And the things that I have, I'm like, I'll be a fool to give this up.
Right.
If you were wealthy, would you want to give that up to go into poverty? No. Now, that wealth may come with some ridiculous work hours. You still put in that time. It's the same thing with the relationship. If I found my treasure, and I call it a kingdom. If I found my kingdom, not to replace kingdom of God, but you understand, you know what I mean, God completes you through a woman. I have to be a fool.
And sometimes you need another man to tell you, you being a fool.
You being a fool. Yo, I had that. Listen, I had that conversation with you. Yeah. Do you want to call her? What does your heart say? I want to talk to her. Then don't let your ego tell you not to pick up the phone. Call her.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Sometimes you need another man.
Sometimes you need. A lot of times you do.
Listen.
Somebody be outside yourself to be able to talk to
and
yourself.
A good person that's just like, that loves you as a man.
It's going to tell you
who ain't a sucker, because some men are suckers. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Let's just call it what it is. Yeah. But a man who's going to be like, yo, listen, bro.
He's going to tell you.
I'm trying to make sure you have wealth, prosperity, and a happy home. Yeah. Listen, what's out here in these streets? It's only, it don't get that much different. It don't. So what we really talking about? Man, listen, that's what I told you. I don't need a bad body. Give me peace. Yeah. But I got to look at you and be attracted to you. And I've come to learn, man, listen, when she in,
well, I need a bad body. It's just lower on the list.
Yo, man, trust me, man. Trust me.
I know.
Right one, you'll be like, man, listen. Jewels start coming out your mouth and you'll be like,
she offered that peaceful place.
Listen, and that peaceful place looks real attractive. She be coming out, hair all messed up, and you like, man, you ain't never looked so good.
That's my piece.
And she can't even believe you.
Right.
Man, listen, I'll take a bite out of that. I sure enough will.
That's a piece.
Man, in fact,
yo,
let's wrap this show up.
This has been dope, man. Great topic here. Share this, like it, subscribe to the page. We're on any platform. You can any listening platform. We're on there. Any all social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest. I'm leaving anything out.
We started TikTok, right?
TikTok as well.
The website, www.blackdadunfiltered.com.
Yep, you can find us there as well. So, man, thank y'all for joining us today.
Yes,
we are Black Dad Unfiltered. I'm Carlos V. Spencer.
And I'm your boy, Coach Rod. Let's go. Let's grow. Let's go get it.
Y'all be blessed.